Woodies, proud sponsor of Supergarden.
These 5 aspiring garden designers will compete for the title Supergarden 2015. To win, they will each have 5 weeks to design and create a unique garden that proves they are ready to join the best of the professionals. The winning garden will be recreated at Ireland's premier garden show, Bloom, and will be representing Woodies and Cuprinol at the festival. Each garden designer will have the help of our mentor, a previous Supergarden champion and Bloom Gold medalist, Leonie Cornelius. And professional landscaper Kevin Williams can be called upon for support. 5 garden designers, only one will make it to Bloom. The third designer to take up the challenge is Susie Can, a self-taught expert in the world of permaculture, the sustainable approach to gardening. For over 20 years, Susie has worked as an educator.
I started volunteering in a local school teaching kids about growing food and nature studies. So we used to go in, the 2 of us, half an hour a week and set up community gardens around County Wicklow.
The designers are each given a blank canvas to transform over 5 weeks. Out of the hundreds of homeowners who applied, this long back garden in Kimmage, Dublin 12 was selected for Susie. This urban location is home to the Martin family. Yinka and Sean applied to have their garden made over because they would like a space the family can grow into.
At the moment, the garden, there's absolutely nothing there and we don't know where to start.
The couple recently bought and renovated this house, creating a contemporary interior in their new home.
We'd love somewhere where we could entertain friends, somewhere where Sadie can run around and play in as she grows.
Relatively low maintenance garden because we don't really know much about gardening.
This is the first time Susie will produce a show garden, but she's hoping her artistic past will help her on the road to Bloom.
So I've had no formal training in garden design because I went to art college and I practiced as an artist. For me, the really exciting thing that I hope I can bring to an urban garden is this passion I have for growing and for nature. That it's somewhere beautiful, but also somewhere really abundant.
The design budget is €5,000. For that, Susie must create a garden that will have impact at the Bloom Garden Show and deliver a space to the Martin family that works for them. This is Susie's design, a postcard from the countryside, influenced by her permaculture ethos. The embankment at the bottom of the garden will become a shire or hobbit-like space. A geodesic dome is a big design statement that will produce food. And a crazy paving patio area will become an entertainment sun trap. Mentor Leonie has seen Susie's design and has picked up on the major contrast between the new contemporary interior and the planned rustic exterior.
One of the big challenges as a designer is trying to bring the inside and the outside to work together. So there's a big difference here between the inside style and the outside style.
But Leonie won't be deciding. That's up to the Supergarden judges. Colour consultant and designer representing Cuprinol, Roisin Lafferty. The manager of Bloom, Gary Graham. And top horticulturalist for Woodies, Paddy Gleeson.
I have to say this is one of the most unusual and exciting drawings that I have seen for some time.
I'm really concerned with how this is going to translate. I think there's too much going on, too many separate areas, and it's going to look cluttered and mismatched.
It is catchy, it's exciting, and it's unusual.
One of the main things here is to make sure it doesn't get crowded, that there's not too much going on. So editing out anything that isn't really doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing.
Susie is really strong in the education field, and I fear that she's looked at this and said, okay, here's an opportunity to talk about and promote permaculture, which is great, but she's trying to do everything in this very small garden.
It could work out really well, or it could almost be a theme park. You know, you've murals on different walls, you've got a nest area, you've a love seat, you've a dome, you've a planting area. There's so many bits to that space. It's a small garden. It could be a mess.
Bringing permaculture into a space works really, really well in large-scale projects. It's a real challenge to bring it into a smaller urban setting.
Permaculture design, by nature, you expect it to be messy. You're actually bringing nature into a smaller scale. I think it'll be very good.
With a budget of €5,000, Susie now has 5 weeks to realise her design. She has arrived early to mark out the garden.
Today I need to see my proportions in the actual space.
And she has an all-organic approach.
Trousers. I use flour because it's very easy to see, it's very cheap, and it doesn't do any damage to the ground, and it'll just wash away. And sit. Come right out here. I'm good with things like it's the length of my car, you know, or it's my height, but I'm not very good with it's 45, something or others. Path there, seat here, table there, seat here. Cool. Ta-da!
With the garden marked out, it's time for Susie's troops to arrive.
So today, our main job is shoveling soil out into the right places to start marking out the paths. Let's go. Have a shovel.
And it's a real family affair.
Finn is my youngest. I've got Rosa, my daughter's here as well. And then I've got Sammy, he's been helping unload just now. And my husband's here, and my dad's here. And he's probably one of the hardest workers of the lot of us, and he's 78.
The greatest of adventures starts with a simple good luck card.
It says, enjoy what you do doing best, gardening. There's a little permaculture principle that goes, anything is only waste if you haven't figured out a use for it. And once you've figured out a use for it, it's not waste, it's a resource. So this is going to go into a hole under where we're extending the patio to bring up the level.
And the reuse, repurpose ethos uncovers another treasure.
We found this big log in the garden, so today we're going to cut up this and use it as steps.
Susie is cutting terraces into the embankment at the bottom of the garden, using an age-old skill.
Hazel is native wood. It's very bendy when it's fresh cut, and hazel wattles were a traditional kind of fencing used in Ireland for years, so we're using a local skill that's still around. So it's just like weaving a giant basket, in and out the posts, back and forth.
The all-sustainable garden has a firm footprint.
We've made a really good start today. There's a lot of little parts of the garden are starting to have their foundations, I suppose, but there's an awful lot more to do still.
Next day, work continues, and Woody's landscape advisor, Kevin Williams, is here to help Susie with the crazy paving patio.
So my suggestion would be to get a level from here, do a big section of your patio here.
Yeah.
That's your level.
Hardcore is added to bring the foundation level up. Then concrete is mixed, and Kevin shows Susie how to lay the slabs and perfect the random look.
All the stone is different sizes and different width. Okay. What I'm trying to do is make sure that there's no air pockets underneath the stone so it doesn't crack or doesn't move.
Armed with the expert's advice, Susie uses the workforce to move the ton of mixed paving into the back garden. Homeowner Yinka even lends a hand. Then it's down to Susie and her newfound skills at patio laying. But for artist Susie, it's all about the beautiful detailing.
It's got to turn what was this just blank slab of concrete into something that you want to step outside, that to begin your kind of path and flow into the garden. So it's got to look really good.
The groundworks are complete, and now it's time for painting.
In this shade part of the garden, I'm putting a really deep, dark green paint, and we're going to offset that with a little bit of light mural. I've got my daughter and her friends today who are going to do some artwork. That will then get planted up with the same types of plants that we're putting in the mural and try to bring this kind of woodland edge feel.
Susie's ethos to use traditional skills where possible allows for a family-friendly mud and straw wall construction.
When we work with cob, it's a really fun material to work with, and it's because it's safe. It's really something I can involve the kids with. It's in my comfort zone. It's a very natural material to work with. It doesn't require very exact measurements. It's quite forgiving, which is great for me. It's like how I make bread.
The cob wall will form the boundary for a keyhole-shaped planting bed.
Okay, thank you, Finn.
In an effort to strike the balance between a productive garden and a show garden, Susie is bringing a geodesic dome to Kimmage.
In Ireland, we've got to have a covered space if you want to have some of the kinds of crops that need ripening. Because it's also a show garden, I was looking for something a bit more interesting than a standard greenhouse or a standard hoop polytunnel. It's not a hidden feature, so it's got to look good.
The seagrass paint used on the geodome frame picks up the colour tones from the interior of the house. This should please Mentor Leone.
This is kind of a tie back to the house, back to the walls, and yet all around it are these forms and shapes that can work with it. And that's what I've got to do now. I've got to tie it all into the rest of the garden. And yet let it be bold, let it be a different contrast to things that are around it.
Now at the halfway point, Mentor Leone pays a visit.
Whoa, that's incredible. Amazing.
But Susie's paint, Paradise Green, is not working for Leone.
Why the green?
Well, we talked about a dark green for the wall, and I selected out a green, and I suppose a little inexperience on my part was that when we put it on, it didn't look like my card. It wasn't as dark as I anticipated. It was St. Patrick's Day green.
It's so hard to know.
You know, and then we put like 3 more coats, I think we did on it, and it did darken down more or less to what I was thinking of. And it is going to have a lot of trees against it. So it's becoming a woodland. And, you know, with years to come of planting, I do think that's going to recede a bit.
Yeah. It's funny, the first thing I noticed when I came in was obviously this, which is incredibly striking.
Yes.
And then the green, which just feels like it takes over from it.
Yeah, yeah.
The green is wrong, in my opinion, because the rest of the garden works really well. There's a great feeling happening with the really muted, beautiful, natural colours. And Susie's whole ethos has that, that permaculture, that natural organic flow in it. So the green is just the wrong shade of green for that garden.
My daughter and her friends will be in tears if I make them paint all those things again.
But it's just the wrong green. With that green, the garden will not be going to bloom.
I'm a bit behind. I'm beginning to see the deadline. That's the pressure, and I do feel it rising on the horizon, coming towards me.
Coming up, Susie lays the lawn.
It's the only lawn in the garden.
And the judges question the finish.
Are you happy with the standards of the construction in this garden?
I can hold my head up over almost everything in this garden.
Woody's, proud sponsor of Super Garden.